is the 40 Days for Life podcast with your host, Sean Carney.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the 40 Days for Life podcast. I'm Sean Carney, the president of 40 Days for Life, and your host for this podcast, which is dedicated to helping you end abortion. Happy birthday, America, the greatest country ever. We are coming up on 250 years, so that's the first time we will quote the great Ricky Bobby, who loved our country very much. And as we approach the 4th of July, I want to get an early podcast out on some of the great pro-life documents of our country, and somebody who definitely loves America and has contributed to many wonderful pro-life documents of our country, including What to Say When 1 and What to Say When 2, available at 40daysforlife.com/gear, and also on Amazon, is Mr. Steve Carlin.
Hey, glad to be a contributor to the great heritage of America.
Absolutely. When people wonder what to say when on any topic, they can ask you.
Yeah, any topic and every topic.
Even the French Revolution.
Yes, and if you have not listened to us disparaging the French for 52 minutes, you can go back and find that French Revolution podcast where we blame them for our problems today. Quite an enjoyable experience.
I didn't.
All of you, unless your name is Pierre.
Which must be my name because I didn't blame him.
You did. Matt Britton, our general counsel, is also here. Good to see you again.
Bonjour.
Bonjour. You know, I think after recording that podcast, I ended up getting in my truck and just listening to the great Les Mis soundtrack, all the way home. And I was like, yeah, take it all back. They're fantastic.
If you cared about the environment, you wouldn't drive a truck.
And I don't, so I do. Okay, so, all right. The first document that we have, which is really good to start with because we just all think the Declaration of Independence just, popped out and then we followed it. The Virginia Declaration of Rights in 1776.
Yeah, we've got a quote here. All men are by nature equally free and independent and have certain inherent rights of which, when they enter into a state of society, they cannot by any compact deprive or divest their posterity, namely the enjoyment of life and liberty. So it's not going to be unfamiliar when you read the Declaration of Independence. There's some similar concepts here, or the Bill of Rights, but we've got a very early testament to the fact of there is a right to life, and it cannot be taken away. And it's particularly mentions to the posterity as well.
Yeah, no, that's great. Obviously, there is a lot of strong language that resembles the Declaration of Independence, which is number 2 on our list as great America pro-life documents. I think that we have cliches and everybody kind of hates them, but we can never take away the cliche of the Declaration of Independence, of the right to life. And we have to quote it. I don't know what the pro-abortion folks respond to that. I mean, maybe they'll say, it was written by a bunch of, slave owners. But that is our mantra, I think, as pro-life Americans.
Sometimes cliches are cliche for a reason. They're worth repeating.
Yeah, Twain said all generalizations, including this one, are false. But all generalizations are partially true as well. And I think that's the case. When Dr. Haywood Robinson, I was with him, with my son, debating Dr. Wendy Savage, great name for an abortionist, who proudly presided...
British abortionist.
In London, proudly presided over 70,000 abortions, and I'm proud of my work, she said. There was a demon somewhere close, I can tell you that. And he said to her, ma'am, every embryology textbook, page 1, chapter 1 in the world says that life begins at conception. You know it, I know it, and we both swore to the Hippocratic oath that we shall procure no abortion. So the answer to the written by white men 250 years and all that stuff is, she said, that was written by men thousands of years ago.
She said that.
Yeah, but
it's like
didn't deny she swore to it.
Right.
Didn't deny she. And as to the other argument that Haywood was debating her on a radio show, she said, I know it's a life. I know I'm taking a life. The woman's life is superior.
Yeah, she was honest.
So that is the argument, right? We're about to go through a bunch of stuff, which are the beautiful, you can cry reading this stuff as an American, as a patriot. It's beautiful, and it does affirm life. But we can read everything we want. It doesn't say there shall be no abortion, right? And so they can always make the argument that life meant an acorn ain't an oak tree, is it? Like, they can always make an argument about it and say, well, then it is a life, like Dr. Wendy Savage said, but it's women over fetuses every time, and men with uteruses too. The problem with legal definitions and documents is they can be changed, right? And Steve loves the French Revolution, and that's what happened to that. They just rewrote everything, and then a few years later, Napoleon's the emperor. Right. They don't have a king anymore, because they killed him. Right. And then they exiled Napoleon. So, it goes on and on. So I just, wanted to point out.
Even within our own country, it went on and on of slaves were property.
And you can't win, right? Because we know there was a big bang. In the beginning, there was nothing. And then it exploded. And I'm like, who created the two things that exploded? And they're just like, we haven't discovered that yet.
Right.
And there's an answer for everything, even if we're just not. We didn't know how to fly 100 years ago. We do now. We weren't on the moon 50 years ago. We are now. We didn't give women the right to abortion 2,000 years ago or 200 years ago, but we do now. Because we're progressive. We're discovering things. Science is getting better. Science is getting better. We're not any better at killing people.
Right.
Science isn't getting better because we kill women in the babies in women's wombs. So I just want to point out that, America is pro-life. America came here for religious freedom, not for freedom to kill people. The freedom against getting killed because you had a particular religion. And we are pro-life, and we're going to read these things. But the answer to the question ultimately is there something in our documents that say that abortion is illegal? No. We need a constitutional amendment.
Yeah, that'll hopefully sometime soon we'll do this podcast again, and that'll be added to the list of great pro-life documents.
Because of people like you. Because you have contributed, you and Sean, with your two books. You're to the founding documents, apparently, of the United States of America, and you will get personhood. It's going to be in here. Where is that? Oh, here it is. It's right after the Declaration of Independence. What to say when won.
Steve left a review of our book on Amazon, and he said this is the greatest document I've ever read, except for the Declaration of Independence,
which I haven't read.
It was just signed S. Carlin. We don't know who wrote it.
I did it in a big font like John Hancock.
That's right. Whoever he was.
That's right. Great name.
But parentheses, which I didn't read.
Right.
Because I'm writing what to say when to.
Spoke for itself. I didn't need to read it.
Yeah.
Reputation preceded it.
That's right. The thing, res ipsa loquitur. The thing speaks for itself.
Yeah.
You wrote it. Must be true.
Where are we?
Enough about.
We're on Federalist number 51.
Well, actually, on the Declaration of Independence, we didn't quote it here. Many people will be familiar. This is a famous.
You know the thing.
We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I just like that it's considered self-evident that there is an unalienable right to life that is endowed by our Creator.
And it is by human nature, and that's why we're winning in the pro-life movement.
So why is it that a woman who is alive and is pregnant, like Gianna Molla, and whose pregnancy may threaten her health, if you want to call it that,
this
doesn't have
many years ago, by the way.
Yeah, but today, let's say there's a woman who has a pregnancy. Why is it that she doesn't have whose life? I mean, that's their argument. Why do we get to say? I mean, of course, the answer is because God is the author of life, and He allowed even the angels can't create life, and we can, and He gave it to us, and He loves us, and He knows us in the womb. And by the way, on the ILJ website, the Institute of Law and Justice of 40 Days for Life, I have like the 45. People say, well, anti-abortion's not in the Bible. That is completely false. That is like the argument that the prohibition against homosexuality is not biblical. What are you talking about?
Right.
You know, I mean, it was I don't think that. Anyway, let's just come up with some other argument. Don't just make stuff up, right? But one thing here is that we know what life is. We know that every hair is counted before and knew you before you were in the womb. And all of these things, we know that's true. But in our documents, that's what people are arguing about. And that was my point before. We're going to go through all this stuff. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in court. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had Roe v. Wade. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had, if it says there shall be no abortion in any of our documents, and that life begins at conception in any of our documents, with the exception, with all due respect, of your books, then none of it says that. And you know why? Because nobody was doing that. Nobody was like, we're going to found America so that women can kill their babies.
Yeah, it goes
nobody
without
was
saying.
doing. I mean, it just goes without saying, and they read all that into it whenever they want, like you said. But a slave owner wrote that. That's the end of it. You're a misogynist. You're some sort of ist, a bigot, prejudiced, or racist. You're some sort of ist that they don't like, and that's. But we all know that it says life, 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 and every single person who read it, who thought about it, meant life in the womb.
Mm-hmm.
But the self-evident is what has been played out and proven to be true, because that's why abortion doctors don't brag about what they do at cocktail parties. That's why women have their head down and are hiding when they come out of an abortion facility. That's why they don't brag about their abortions, even though Planned Parenthood tries to lobby them to do so.
That's why they hide behind terms like choice that don't mean anything.
Right. It's self-evident.
It's why we know that if your pursuit of happiness requires the killing of another, your favorite quotation, right? It's a great poverty that one person's convenience is on the steps on the rights of another by killing them. If your happiness, your pursuit of happiness, requires slaughtering someone else, that's not acceptable because life's first.
Right.
And you can't pursue happiness if you're not alive, right? So, I mean, abortion is the ultimate, but it's a victimless crime, they say about crimes, right? Like, my son, he's addicted to, he had a gut surgery and then he started taking pills and then, they're going to put him in jail for a year for stealing pills. He's addicted. He's a victim of the medical system or whatever. It doesn't hurt anybody else. It's victimless, they say. Like, really? Because you, paid $10,000 for his lawyer, and I'm talking to you right now. Aren't you kind of a victim of this crime, ma'am? And then your family done a lot, and you put him through rehab 6 times, and you went broke, and you had to sell your house. You're kind of a victim of this thing, too, as well. And they say, well, no. But abortion, they never say is a victimless crime. Mm-hmm. You actually, the victim is the intent of the crime. I just wanted to rob the bank. I didn't want to shoot the guard. That was an unintended consequence, maybe foreseeable, but unintended. The end of the pursuit is to kill another human being. That's why Haywood always says abortion never saves a woman's life. An abortion is killing an unborn child. There are lots of stuff like chemotherapy and radical hysterectomies, car wrecks that kill babies in the womb, but that's not an abortion, right? That's the killing of a baby in a womb incidentally to something else, which is not the intended result. But this literally, it's life. Liberty. You don't have any freedom if you're dead, and you certainly can't pursue happiness on this earth if you're dead. And so that's why life's first. And every single person, although we're not going to read abortion is illegal, every single person who not only wrote this, but wrote about it and read it, thought that it included babies in the womb.
Oh, yeah. It was assumed, not argued for. As much.
We're Americans. Aren't we for the kid that falls in? Don't we put everything, even the bad guy? Isn't even the atheist who is crossing the 14th Street Bridge when Air Florida crashes into, doesn't he dive into the icy waters and save the kid and then go back in for the mother? Don't.
Well, even the slave owners. I remember one time when Trump was running in 2016, and most people were still kind of like, okay, and I had a pro-abortion guy. And he was doing the typical thing during that time period. It was, well, you're so full of crap. You're some great Christian, and you're supporting this guy. Like Donald Trump's been divorced 100 times. He slept with everybody in the Playboy Mansion. He's a scumbag. He yells. He cusses. He does all this. He goes on this litany of how evil Trump is, and he stops. And I go, no, I know all that's true, and even he's against abortion. and the guy was like, oh, that's a good point. It's on a plane ride. And it was like, yeah, he's like the worst scumbag, most evil guy in the world. he doesn't want to hurt a baby.
Most liars tell the truth most of the time.
Yeah, but
But a lot of people, maybe they're arsonists or murderers or whatever, but 362 days a year, they're not doing that.
right.
And I mean, bad people can do good
He's a
things.
good boy.
Good people can do bad things, and because we have free will, but we shouldn't be given the free will to kill other people so that we can get ahead.
To your point about everyone knows what this means, you could imagine, you could write a sci-fi book that it's the year 3026 and we go to the Alpha Centauri star system and we find another race of intelligent life and they somehow know God and they worship
It's
God.
going to take longer for us to go there.
Okay, whenever it happens.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. But there's a race, an intelligent race, and we decide to enslave and do genocide against them.
I don't see race.
But let's say it's those who do.
Oh, okay. It's sci-fi.
Yeah, we're going to do genocide and we're going to enslave the aliens. Well, it says all men are created equal. It doesn't say anything about aliens. It's the same sort of nonsense. You can extend it backward or forward, but everybody knows what it really means unless you're trying to justify doing something.
Well, and as a technical point, I mean, I'm against abortion, but I'm fine with enslaving the aliens.
These aren't the Independence Day aliens. These are good.
I would enslave them too. I mean, they were scary. I don't know if we could. They were far superior to us. And now that Will Smith has lost his mind, we're losing.
We still have Randy Quaid. He's still totally with it.
He died at the end, saving us the first time.
But to your point, you can even say, but it says all men are created equal, so I reject the document in and of itself.
Right.
And you're like, but everybody knows that meant mankind. That's what it meant.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I reject the word human.
It's same with scripture. Households. That was an emphasis on from old to babies in the womb. The whole households were baptized, or the mentioning households converted, and that meant everybody, including the unborn. So,
A lot of the great saints say to avoid frivolous arguments and meaningless arguments. I'm afraid that in the law and in the movements to protect the unborn, you can't, because these arguments are persuasive. They're bumper stickers, but when they put an acorn isn't an oak tree and a fetus isn't a baby, people are persuaded by that. Just like they're persuaded by abortion stops a beating heart. We do the same thing, to be fair. And so there are a lot of frivolous arguments. It just says men, doesn't address women, so we need to, that's absolutely, we've got to address the absurdity. And sometimes people will come around. If, as Paul said, you do it with charity, yes, confront, but confront with charity, do everything with charity. And I think that's really important. But I mean, we're Americans. We built these documents because men were supposed to protect. Men were supposed to protect and act like men, and we're not doing that. And women were Mama Bear protects her cubs with her life. Mm-hmm. I think that one of the greatest and most persuasive and simplest pro-life arguments is, well, then why can't I kill him 1 minute after he's born?
right.
And their most new response is, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Northam was saying it.
That's the recent.
Just go all out.
You got to be if you support infanticide, you're good to go. You're consistent. Of course, eventually.
And euthanasia. And then you're like, yeah, actually, my father-in-law is 64. He's not the guy he used to be. Let's knock him off. I'm tired of him living in my apartment. I could use that room for a study.
My kindergartner is annoying and doesn't behave.
That's right. They doesn't listen. So Ritalin didn't work. Maybe Madame Guillotine.
I haven't heard anybody reference Ritalin in a while, so that was true. That was great.
Anybody that's inconvenient. I mean, that's what they're saying. And there are a lot of good reasons. And, Sean, we've had yelled out to us, you don't care about the babies, you just care about the unborn babies. And that's not a bad argument. It's not true. It's factually incorrect. But we need to help them because they're the girl that looks at you and says, but I'm 17 and my grandma just kicked me out of her basement because I'm a drug addict, because I'm pregnant, because my uncle raped me. You're like, look, I'm not saying you don't have good reasons for wanting an abortion.
Right.
I'm just saying that you shouldn't get an abortion. I mean, these are. Do we legislate from the fringe? Are there not exceptional things? No. Of course we don't. We include everybody, and every baby has to be protected, no matter what, because they're made in the image of God, and we need to help that young lady. And we need to act like men, and we need to act like women. But you have to address the issues that it's not always some angry 50-year-old man going, you don't like the babies that are in the womb and born. What when she says it? But where am I going to go the day after I have my baby? By the way, I was in a vigil in Great Falls, Montana, and a woman had a 55-year-old who had had 7 miscarriages, adopted a baby of a 16-year-old girl whose mother had had 7 abortions.
Wow.
And 40 days for life, but not her, obviously. She's
Right.
put them together. Neither of them had heard about it. Like the Baptist church, and they saw the girl in the street, and neither of them had heard about it. And that 55-year-old adopted that baby and went to every medical appointment with that 16-year-old girl. And I was given a talk in the church, doing the kickoff or whatever, the closing, and the mother Skyped in, videoed in, and told her story after I gave my talk. And she said, I had 7 miscarriages, and her mother had 7 abortions and 5 children. And she said, I want to be like you, not like my mom. And when that baby came out, she said, I can't give you a home or a car, but I can give you a family. And she walked that walk. And from the back of the thing, a hand raised and said, Mr. Britton, can I say something? And this girl walked up and she said, I'm that girl.
No way.
Yeah, and so that mother said, I didn't tell her it wasn't going to be a long walk. I told her I'd walk it with her.
Right.
And that is freedom. That's liberty. That's equality, not trampling on the rights of other people. And that's what these guys meant. We went out there and we fought for what was right, And not everybody was perfect. Not everybody was just. Not everybody made it. But nobody was like, the first thing I'm going to do is kill all the babies in the womb. No, Daniel Boone never said that. Davy Crockett never said that, right? The Tuskegee Airmen did not say that.
Right.
Right? The Patriots don't say that. They're fighting for the freedom for those babies to grow up and be free. And so that's what these documents mean. And no, it's never going to say abortion. And if it did, they would argue about is and abortion and the A in abortion. That's not how they originally spelled abortion. That's not what it says in the Aramaic. They will twist the words because that's what the devil does. What do they say? You're a murderer and a liar, and lying comes naturally to you. You're the prince of lies. There's nothing we could ever write.
That's true, but to your point, we have so many examples in America from our beginning of that happening, of everybody in the world would have said, your mom had 7 abortions, you're going to have an abortion.
Right.
You need to have an abortion. And that's appropriate. You're going to have an abortion.
She
And they would have writ her off. And the baby too. And because it's the rejection of hope, which is the ultimate attack that it's what drives abortion, is the absence of hope. The best thing for you is to kill your own baby. That's the message.
That's why Steve thinks the French Revolution caused abortion, because hope got substituted with égalité. They took faith, hope, and love, and they substituted it with liberté, égalité, and what?
Fraternity.
Fraternité, which is sexist. Didn't say sororité. Why not, Steve?
And I don't even speak Italian, so I don't even know what that means.
That's true.
But it's amazing that
Italian's the new Latin.
they're all the same. Bunch of Euro languages no one
Which you
gets.
love.
Yeah, I do. I actually love Europe. Another plug for our French Revolution podcast, which is way more inspiring than it sounds today, but it is. Check it out. And they are at fault for all this. But I completely agree with you, and it's beautiful, and it's actually, as we come up on, miraculously, we've made it 250 years. The American experiment was supposed to be a disaster, and we kind of did a lot wrong that could be. You look at the War of 1812, everybody's looking, going, well, it was a good, little run. Y'all are finished.
Read Ben Franklin's Defense of the Constitution. He says, the document is not perfect, but I vote for it, and I urge you to vote for it. And he did. He swayed it. It's amazing that so many different people with so many different backgrounds could come up with something so great. But the democracy will last about 400 years, because once the people find out that they have the power of the purse, it will end. So even that,
We're over halfway there, according to his prediction.
Exactly.
Well, where when you look at other countries, the Third Reich was supposed to last 1,000 years. According to Hitler, it lasted 12 years and 4 months. And I think that we have continued to fix ourselves to the best of our ability and get back to our roots.
But even those guys didn't think the Constitution was God.
No.
Even those guys, I don't know what they believed. I know Jefferson wrote his own Bible and all that stuff, but at least they were struggling towards some sort of belief. But they certainly didn't believe that a good way to start out would be to kill all the children in the womb. And they didn't think the Constitution was God, and it's not. History is not God. You are not God. God is God. And lines on a map are not God. And yes, patriotism is a virtue or virtuous or something. But the fact of the matter is that God is God. And they knew that. And he said it would last around 450 years, and he wasn't even, the Roman Empire fell and the Greeks, and Mesopotamia and Persians and all that, right? And so we got to love America. Aren't we patriots? Isn't patriotism a virtue? Aren't we the greatest country? Don't we stand up for the underdog? No. I'm not sure if you're killing 1.3 million Americans a year in the womb. That doesn't sound like standing up for the underdog. And that's what these documents mean. Life. Everybody gets a chance. Everybody gets a chance. And if somebody's putting down somebody else who gets a chance, man, maybe you defend them.
And we don't act in real life like the abortion mindset. We root for the underdog. We love Rocky. We love the kid that comes from nowhere.
That's what Peter Creep says. In no other area do we act like this. In no other area would we ever advocate for evil of this sort. Nobody's like, we need more nuclear weapons. Why don't we have a nuclear war every 3 years? Nobody's ever saying this about the monumental issues of our time. But if it involves sex, then we act completely differently.
Yes.
Is your stomach your God? I mean, if we each analyze ourselves, if you can't even get over the most basic human functions and stop killing people for the right to do the most basic human functions, we're in kind of trouble. We're just animals.
Yeah. Yeah. There's been many great occasions where my stomach has been my God. It's been quite enjoyable.
No, I mean, nachos is a bigger venue.
I mean, there's exceptions to every rule. I mean, is this absolute? Okay.
But they don't stop making nachos during Lent.
I shouldn't have had the last 3 trays, but they were good.
Well, if I shouldn't eat nachos in Lent, they shouldn't make nachos.
But I'm against banning nachos, just for the record.
Nachos keep you alive, and that's in the Declaration.
And because of the French Revolution, we were able to,
Because they invented the cheese that goes on it.
They invented the cheese, yeah.
Federalist 51.
Federalist 51.
Does that talk about abortion?
No.
Proves my point.
It is of great importance to guard one part of the society against the injustice of the other part. Simple little sentence.
Yeah, to me, this is sort of a defense against mob rule or the tyranny of the majority. You have to protect everybody, not just the people who are popular.
I mean, it depends, and I'm just going to take the other side. Federalist 78 says that the courts have neither force nor will, but judgment, right? So you understand the Federalist Papers are talking about government, right?
That's why I only picked Federalist 51.
Right, I know.
On the list.
But it's talking about government, and
But they also
checks and balances, right? And it's writ large, though. Right, because shouldn't our government reflect our values in our society? I mean, we say no anymore. We say no because there are no values that they agree on. They say, well, how are we supposed to have a government? And that's a good point. Maybe you shouldn't. Be careful what you wish for, because they may agree with you and go to anarchy. But that is true. That certainly is a manifestation, or as Martin Luther King said, an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. And you can make it, but really this is a governmental document, right? A ruling document.
It's amazing the situations they predicted we would go through, that they would need this. Like the Federalist Papers. It's not
Absolutely.
It's not 5 pages long where they're like, hey, have a meeting and figure it out. I mean, it's pretty detailed.
It's like,
or as
why
you
was
like to
all
say,
the good rock,
esoteric.
it was esoteric. Why is all the good rock music in the 60s, 70s, and
Drugs.
How they
You can explain that. That was all the drugs in the 60s and 70s.
okay, so you could explain
And the cars and the music were
I
better
don't
for
know
it.
about all the drug stuff. You know about that. So, but the
I know a lot of
all these geniuses came together. And you might say, I know Steve says that the philosophes in the French Revolution were together, but you have all these geniuses, Jefferson and Franklin and Adams, Madison, all these guys coming together. But the thing is, they lived it. You're like, how did you know? They lived it. They knew. They lived under the persecution in England and the state religion. The Dutch, they lived under the persecution when they couldn't, and the Calvinists moving over and the colonies and the Mayflower. And they knew. So when they said no ex post facto laws, even the peasants knew what an ex post facto law was, that the king would make a law that was now illegal and put you in jail for something you did 4 years ago. And no bills of attainder, like personal laws against one human being, which they used to do it. They were reeling under these inequities. So they really knew. And they were very, very bright, and they were very educated, many of them very wealthy. And so this is the idea of the House of Lords. They were born to rule, and they were taught from a very young age, in order to rule, like the kings were. And so they were geniuses, and it was many ways a miraculous time coming here. But that's another part about the sadness of just throwing that all away. Mm-hmm. How many people died in the good revolution, not the American? How many people had to die, and how many atrocities were committed, and how many people had to spend their time writing this and ensuring this for us to say, it'd be a really good idea if we killed all the kids. Like, no, that was never that's not what we did this for. I mean,
but that's a Margaret Sanger quote. That's essentially what it's not what we did this for. But probably when you look at the 1920s, which get very sort of overlooked, when we can just take over the world, roaring 20s, right? It's unbelievable. We've won World War I. It's high tide. It's awesome. And we don't really need God anymore, we don't think. I think we're doing pretty good. And that's when Sanger and all these other lunatics started talking about population and the perfect population. And that is progress, and they would tie that back to the founding fathers, that this is what America was for, which was your point earlier. They'll just take documents and make it fit their own agenda. And that's, how do we make America better? We decrease poverty. We maybe get rid of some black people, which she was definitely a fan of. And, we kind of adjust the population so it's the best version of America we've ever had.
It's against their own argument. So now we need babies? Are they going to say, well, now you have to have them?
We need the right babies.
Yeah. Okay, but whatever. But some people have to have them.
Sure.
Okay. But I thought it was my right to. It was when Clinton, I think it was Obama, was said, well, but because he voted for the one man, one marriage, Defensive Marriage Act or whatever, and then he didn't.
He evolved.
And he evolved. If we evolved from monkeys, why are there still monkeys? Anyway, so that's the common thing, like, or when's the next human going to pop out of the chimpanzee? So Obama says, what does he say? He says, I think it was him, it may have been Clinton, who changed his mind. And then they asked him, well, what about polygamy? I mean, that's got a basis. And he goes, don't be ridiculous.
Yeah.
But there were actually polygamists for a long time,
right,
and still are.
Right. That's a great exchange, it's a smart...
Well, who was it, Clinton?
It's Obama.
Okay.
But it's smart of Obama, who was a brilliant politician, and also it was smart, Hillary did the same. When they had the debate in 2016, it's kind of the famous exchange where Trump says, Hillary wants to take the baby at the 9th month and rip it out of the womb, and that she may think it's okay, but I don't think it's okay. And that was brilliant of Trump.
That's how he won.
I know.
Extreme late term.
And Scalia was dead.
That's not the way.
And we had never had a presidential candidate ever say that. And her response, in my view, was as brilliant as his, which is she said, I think we're just tired of this graphic rhetoric that we hear from Donald Trump. So he's always yelling and, you know, cursing, and he's crazy. So when he accurately describes abortion, we're just going to be like, oh, that's absurd. And of course, it's one of many ridiculous things that he's ever said in his life. And that's what Obama did. And that's what Hillary did. And it's smart. It's not true. It's a lie. And it's, you know, we're now trying to change the subject. But,
well, to be fair, first response, which I have to Donald Trump, I have no interest. But to be fair, her first response was, "That's not the way it happens," and he turned to her and said, "Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And you know it."
And you know it.
And then she said,
she's like, I think we're part of the graphic.
Your hyperbolic rhetoric is
right.
Nobody ever understood what she was using huge words so that she could just get on to the next topic that she knew something about.
And it was really good pro-life apologetics that he had on the fly, because most people would be like, okay, well, then how does it happen? You tell me.
Oh, yeah.
And then he hands her the floor, which you can't do. You have to say, yes, it is how it happens, and you know it. So
well, that's where I think never listening to anybody worked in his favor.
100%. 100%. Okay, Steve.
What other Federalists can you take out of context?
The Bill of Rights, First Amendment, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people to peacefully assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Obviously, this doesn't really have anything to do with abortion, but it does have a whole lot to do with what we do at 40 Days for Life, or what so many of our pro-life friends do in the political arena or the legislative arena. We've got the right to speak up on the most important issue of our day, or perhaps of all time. And I think sometimes we take the First Amendment for granted, as though it's sort of canon in Western civilization, that of course in a Western democracy you have a right to free speech. And that, as we are increasingly reminded by places like the United Kingdom, is not true. As we're reminded by places like Australia, New Zealand, that the right to free speech is not assumed or universal. We have it here, so we better use it.
You brought up the Bill of Rights, so I just want to say what the Bill of Rights is. You know, we came here for governmental rights and individual rights, right? When we passed the Constitution in 1789, there was not a single individual right in the original United States, not one single one. That was the Bill of Rights, and it had 12. 10 passed. So those were the first amendments, and those were the first individual rights in the Constitution. And everybody says this one's the most important. Pretty much everybody. Some people says, no, it's the Second Amendment because it protects all the other rights, but it's none of that. I'm going to prove it. It's the 14th Amendment.
Right.
So the Bill of Rights, this First Amendment, the right to assemble, the right to freedom, and if we don't have the right to say things, and as I think it was Felix Frankfurter says, if obnoxious speech isn't protected, no speech is protected, because who gets to? So we have free speech except for in buffer zones around abortion facilities where we can't talk. But anyway, it isn't the First Amendment that's the most important. That's not why it's first. It isn't the Fourth Amendment that says even the king, but for a warrant, cannot cross the threshold of your home upon oath or affirmation. It isn't the Second Amendment that allows us to protect, through a militia. It's the 14th Amendment, because if some people are allowed to have free speech and others aren't, then an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere, as MLK wrote from a Birmingham jail, as they say. And that's the 14th Amendment, the Equal Protection Clause, and the Due Process Clause, right? So everybody gets due process. There's no star chamber. They don't convict you without you even, you're walking down the street and they're like, you're going to the penitentiary. No, don't I go to jail and then I get to have a hearing and I get to have a lawyer? No, you don't have any of that. We just did it. You were guilty. Like, we had a trial and now we're going to hang you. Like, but I didn't know what was going on. So we have these due process and notice. But the equal protection law is the anti-abortion law. So if there's anything in here, it has nothing to do with the word life, because we can debate life. But they don't get equal protection. The babies in the womb do not get equal protection. And we are seeing that right this second, when a woman couldn't be deported who was pregnant, even though she had no legal status in the country, because her baby was conceived and would be born in the United States if they don't deport her. And so her unborn child has future citizen rights.
In Massachusetts,
and has, in federal court in Massachusetts, the First Circuit, has equal protection under the laws. So if the law doesn't apply to anybody there's this TV show people like in books that are really good, Bosch, and his
Yeah.
mother was a prostitute and she was murdered and nobody cared. And so his whole thing as a cop in LA was, if everybody doesn't matter, nobody matters. And that's what's happened. And you always call it, I know we're going to get to slavery and emancipation, but you always call abortion the new slavery. And it is. We took a class of people, we classified them in, I think, more as due to location. You think more as to ability and size, maybe it's everything. But these are humans in the womb. And the biology is the study of carbon, the study of life. And something growing is the definition of life.
And it is location.
By carbon-based growing. And if something is growing in a woman, it's a human. It's not a cat. It's maybe an acorn's not an oak tree. But a baby in the womb is also not an oak tree. It's a human.
Yeah.
And there's no species jumping. You're not going to it's not Sigourney Weaver and Alien. When there is something growing in the womb,
FYI.
you know what I mean.
Oh, great movie.
Yeah, very scary.
She-
Aliens.
yeah, she
if
was
you
pro-life.
if you see it, the movie's not particularly pro-life. Not the aliens. They're not pro-human life. See Aliens, not aliens.
Aliens. Both are good.
It's where the sequel was better than the original. T2's like that.
Terminator 2 is like that.
And is Bill and Ted's Big Adventure 2 like that, or
No, because that's the bogus journey, not the excellent adventure, and bogus is not as good as excellent.
If we're on that topic, I'll wrap it up and say Top Gun Maverick was also better than the original.
Totally disagree.
Okay. That's because you're an 80s man and you're being
It was
loyal.
the same thing recycled with old people.
With better everything around. Okay.
It's a sad testament to your lack of brilliance.
There was something I was going to say and I forgot. Yes, yeah, we did the same thing again with the slavery. Oh,
Haywood says we went to Missouri. The Missouri Attorney General asked us to help them, and April Wilson is elected prosecutor there, and she did it, and she got appointed special assistant attorney general. She had a badge. It was great. And she did a fantastic job, and Haywood offered his services, and they took his deposition. And the guy from Planned Parenthood popped up this, didn't you say that abortion's worse than slavery? And Haywood's like, yeah, I've said that a lot. And the guy's like, oh, you can take down the video, because they thought he was going to deny it. And he's like, why would you possibly say that? A white male attorney, Haywood's black.
right.
So he says, because you could escape slavery. Abortion's real effective.
Nice.
And the guy was like, never
Good point.
thought of that. Haywood said, by the way, you're taking this deposition. I'm sitting in your old building. You build nice buildings.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So because he was here at HQ.
Is that like the My Cousin Vinny? I got no more use for this guy.
Yeah. Haywood also said, you're a nice guy. You're a good lawyer. I like you. And he goes, I like you too, Dr. Robinson.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so it's
All in a deposition.
Haywood, all in a deposition. But the point is that it's taking a class of people, not to mention Margaret Sanger, who affirmatively said it. And when they asked,
I want to exterminate. Don't let word get out that we want to exterminate
the
the
brown
Negro
people? Yeah.
population.
and they said, well, that happened a long time ago. But that's what they say about slavery, and you
Right.
reject that. It's unbelievable.
Well, and that's Jefferson doesn't get that excuse for owning slaves. Margaret Sanger is like, that was a different time. That's how they talked, and she was a little bit of a racist, but sorry. Okay, well, what about the founding fathers?
Or
Well-
George Washington's wife.
Right.
They're tearing down every single statue because now it's not part of history, and all that stuff. And I don't know whether we should tear down the statues or not. And I'm totally against slavery, and I think it's sickening what these people did. And thank God for William Wilberforce and those types
Right.
of people. But we're just doing it all over.
We're doing it all over, and of course that goes back to the French Revolution podcast.
Obviously.
Okay, the Emancipation Proclamation, 1863.
I don't know whether the French Revolution caused abortion, but you caused the French Revolution podcast.
Yes.
Can we agree on that?
And I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
It's a great podcast.
It was fantastic. It was.
Yeah.
I want to know whether the pharaohs caused abortion. We should do like all of them: Mesopotamia, Xerxes and Darius, the Persians,
The Gozerians.
the Greeks. I don't know what is that made up.
It's from Ghostbusters, another great movie.
Oh,
That is a great movie.
Wow, Steve's seen 3 movies and we've covered them all.
And they're all very sophisticated, question mark.
Emancipation Proclamation. I do order and declare that all persons held as slaves within said designated states and parts of states are and henceforward shall be free, and that the executive government of the United States, including the military and naval authorities thereof, will recognize and maintain the freedom of said persons, and upon this act sincerely believed to be an act of justice warranted by this Constitution, upon military necessity, I invoke the considerate judgment of mankind and the gracious favor of Almighty God.
Yep, we tore Lincoln's statue down. So,
Yeah.
the hell with him. All right, the 14th Amendment, 1868. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. That was your point that you just already made, the 14th Amendment. This is the argument of why we don't need a constitutional amendment like personhood, because it's already in there.
Hey, so they say, what's a person? An acorn's not an oak tree. So it would be nice to have a constitutional amendment, because then so we have the Constitution, then we have the laws of Congress, we have the judge-made laws, and we have the state constitutions, the state laws, and the state judge-made law. Nothing can abridge the Constitution. So they argue that a blastocyst is not a person, a blob of tissues, an invasive species, alien in your gut, suppressing the rights of women. But half of them are going to grow up to be women. Screw them. Right. So that's what the point is. What is a person? So we could have a constitutional amendment saying that a person is defined as used in the 14th Amendment, the other portions of the Constitution and the documents herein and the laws of the United States of America. A person shall be defined as a human being from life. What is a human being? They cover all that stuff. From fertilization, conception, to natural death, and shall have all of the privileges and immunities. That's the Privilege and Immunities Clause. The 14th Amendment is pregnant.
Literally.
The 14th Amendment is pregnant with meaning, and you got to read it, and there's so much in there. But that's the Privilege and Immunity Clause, which says that if it's legal in one state, then the other states have to give the same privileges and immunities.
Which is why the current situation is not sustainable.
No. And that's why the 10th Amendment, which they call a tautology, is all powers not reserved to the federal government are left to the states. It's the defect. You can't say this in the pro-life movement, but it's the defect in Dobbs. We'll just leave it to the states. But what about the privilege?
It is the defect in Dobbs.
Look,
but Thomas didn't want that. Thomas argued for the 14th Amendment.
It's genius, and he argues for it in a million things that I won't get into about who can stand before the court. It's all the 14th Amendment, because procedure and process matters. If you decide to appeal your case, or if you get in a car wreck and you decide to sue the guy and it's 10 years later, you've missed the statute. You can't go to court. It doesn't matter what injustice it was. You needed to file within 2 years, right? That's the law. But you get in a car wreck, you got to file a lawsuit against the guy that hit you within 2 years. If it's 3 years, you can't do it. Process matters. They can't just hear stuff 100. Well, can your grandfather sue?
Right.
Like 150 years later for my great grandfather's neck surgery? No. And so the 14th Amendment, I would encourage everybody. It's not long. It's not going to have big words in it.
None of this is long. Except the Federalist Papers. Those are long.
I think JFK's inaugural address was pretty long.
It wasn't that long. He's next, 1961.
The second shortest.
Did you like that segue?
Yeah, that was good. Man holds in his mortal hands the power to abolish all forms of human poverty and all forms of human life, and yet the same revolutionary beliefs for which our forebears fought are still at issue around the globe. The belief that the rights of man come not from the generosity of the state, but from the hand of God.
It's a good strike back against the French Revolution.
Oh, 100%.
And the Catholic Church in New England. Kennedy said that.
Yeah, Kennedy's saying that because they've totally bailed on that. And
do you think that there is a Kennedy in power, running for power of any kind anywhere, who would say that comes from the hand of God?
RFK.
Just the good.
Maybe RFK. Now.
I don't know. I'm trying to think. I don't know.
He's a big God guy.
The unrelated Kennedy from Louisiana.
Huh?
What?
There's an unrelated Kennedy from Louisiana, right? Senator
Good one.
Kennedy.
Good one. You knew what I meant. That's uncharitable.
He's great. Senator Kennedy is fantastic.
That's uncharitable.
And we could listen
He's
to
one
him.
of the funniest guys.
We could listen to him talk all day. He's fantastic.
I also covered.
You already covered this. Birmingham jail. We'll skip it.
But it doesn't have my quotation. An injustice anywhere. The most famous thing is an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere.
Right. That's the most famous part.
If you can start killing,
Steve forgot to include that in
there's no. Well, you can kill your kid. There's none of that for MLK. He's like, no, we did. Like, we got rules. Them's the rules. There's, I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, I don't know what he thought or if he ever mentioned, but I'm just saying he said that, and certainly injustice in the womb.
Oh, yeah.
Why do people think it starts with that? Why do people think it starts, well, if I don't have the right to an abortion, then I don't have any rights at all? Who thought of that? Nobody in here thought,
People just say things, right?
Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, nobody thought of that. They wrote stuff back then like Hippocrates that says, and shall procure no abortion. They knew about abortion. They knew how to do it, and they banned it. Like, you know what we should do? We should knock off our society. We should have this great society and a democratic society. We're Athenians. And then we should kill everybody so they can't benefit from it. Nobody said that. That's like Planned Parenthood's model.
Yeah.
Let's not have any more people to have abortions and we'll go out of business.
Yeah.
No car dealership says that.
No.
They say we want to protect the children. Our car's super safe. We have car seat, automatic look. It's really easy. You know how you had to get through and you cut your hand? We don't have that anymore. Your kids will be safe. They don't say, our car kills your kids.
Lenin and Sanger were kind of fans.
Who?
Lenin and Sanger.
Yeah, Stalin.
Stalin for sure.
Hitler.
Yeah.
Fans of abortion?
Yeah.
Oh, well, but that was genocidal.
That was genocidal.
They wanted to kill the people they didn't like.
Yeah.
And did.
Not John Lennon, the other Lennon.
At first I was like,
Yeah,
I'm not sure he was a good guy, but I don't
Say that on the podcast. I'm not a Beatle fan. All right. Oh, Steve, go with it. Ronald Reagan. Here we go.
So this is kind of interesting. I've got the Evil Empire speech here. And one of the things that's interesting about some of these famous presidential speeches is they're talking about a lot of different stuff. So it's remembered for calling the Soviet Union an evil empire. But he kind of early on took a shot at defunding Planned Parenthood. He said, how far are they? He's talking about parents. How far, and sex ed in the schools, how far are they willing to go in giving to government their prerogatives as parents? Let me state the case as briefly and simply as I can. An organization of citizens deeply concerned about the increase in illegitimate births involving girls well below the age of consent establish a nationwide network of clinics to help these girls and hopefully alleviate this situation. Let me say, I do not fault their intent. However, in their well-intentioned effort, these clinics decided to provide advice and birth control drugs and devices to underage girls without the knowledge of their parents. For some years now, the federal government has helped with funds to subsidize these clinics. So no one's ever going to cite in the litany of great pro-life documents, this random quote from the Evil Empire speech. I just thought it was kind of cool as I was looking through it that he's including it there.
It's a loud shout out to the late, great Dr. Jack Wilkie, who advised Reagan. Because, I mean, it's like, where did he get all that information? How did he know all that? That was definitely Dr. Wilkie, who's really a pioneer of political influence in the pro-life movement. And was a physician himself. So we're in, is it 1 to 10? Is number 10 is the greatest?
Chronologically.
Oh, it's chronological. Okay. I think maybe this is one of the better ones.
The One Big Beautiful Bill Act of 2025. No federal funds shall be used to make payments to a prohibited entity for items and services furnished during the 1-year period beginning on the date of the enactment of this act. The term prohibited entity means an entity that is primarily engaged in family planning services, reproductive health, and medical-related care, and provides for abortions.
It's great. Well, it's unprecedented, and hopefully it gets better. But the defunding of Planned Parenthood, just after 50 years, is just awesome. Particularly the time that it came in. They went from the peak of political power in 2015 to 10 years later not having Roe and being defunded. I mean, and no one saw that coming. No one saw that coming whatsoever. So it's great. It's a great summary of everything, and it shows we have a lot to be grateful for as Americans.
I'd like to see an amendment to the United States Constitution to go on record that personhood, that every life begins and has the full measure, privileges and immunities, equal protection from natural conception or fertilization to natural death, and that'll end it. And we don't need big, beautiful bills about providing abortions and all that stuff that can be changed and modified. And that's what I said then. But they filed a lawsuit against me, and all that type of stuff. There's no vagary anymore. Very, very, very difficult. We undid the 21st Amendment. I get that, but with the prohibition and alcohol, you can be undone, but it requires a supermajority, 75% of the states. And it's complicated to get it on the ballots, and of course you file lawsuits that it was illegally on the ballot, but eventually, if that happens, it's going to stay, and then we can say that we're patriots and we're the greatest nation on earth because we protect. Ultimately, everybody on both sides agrees. Everybody on both sides agrees, whether it's immigration, abortion, the elderly, euthanasia, that we will be judged by how we treated the least amongst us. Yeah. Both as humans and as society. And it starts there. So,
Amen.
Which John
Thank
Paul,
you, Father Matt. What do you think? You like it?
I like it a lot.
Thank you.
John Paul said that in his Denver speech when he arrived at the airport, that every institution will be judged, every government will be judged by how they treat their most vulnerable, most especially the unborn. And that is significant because Bill and Hillary Clinton were standing 3 feet away from him in the rain. So great.
As St. John Paul said from a Birmingham jail. No, wait, that's from a Denver youth conference.
If not us, who? If not now? No, wait a second.
No, but that's it's Federalist something.
Federalist something. All right. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Matt. We hope this was helpful, and happy birthday to us, the United States of America, as we come up on 250 years. We get to change our country and make it better as patriots and as Americans. So let's use this time to be grateful and to use our rights to defend our most vulnerable. Please rate, review, and share this podcast, and we will see you next time. God bless you.